Creating extraordinary success in business and life is absolutely possible. That means more income, more freedom, and more energy for what you value most without the hustle or burnout. I'm Laura Flood, certified success and high performance coach, CEO for over 30 years, and a multiple seven-figure entrepreneur. I've built a profitable, sustainable business while prioritizing my family, my health, and my happiness, and I'm here to help you do the same. This is the Redefining Success Podcast, where I'll share the strategies, tools, and the mindset shifts to help you grow with intention, live a life you love, and create lasting happiness, wealth, and freedom without losing yourself in the process. Let's dive in. Hey there, welcome back to the Redefining Success Podcast. Today's conversation is simple, direct, and it's going to land in a place that most high performers rarely look, even though it's running their entire life. Today, we're talking about energy. What I see is most people track obvious metrics. They track revenue, conversions, visibility, or outcomes. Energy sits underneath all of that as the input that determines the quality of your thinking and your leadership. It also has a significant impact on the decisions you make and how you show up in the relationships that matter most. So when people tell me that they want more time, what they're often describing is a deeper desire to feel like their life belongs to them again. They want their mind back. They want to finish a day and feel like they can actually come home, not just physically, but emotionally too. Energy is the most honest metric of all. A business can be growing and still be draining you. Your reputation can be strong and your nervous system can still be running on this constant high alert. Everything can look great on paper, while your internal experience feels like it requires constant management. Energy has a way of telling the truth. It tells us whether your structure is supporting you or whether you're operating in a way that can scale without costing you personally, and also whether the success you've built is sustainable or if everything's being held together by your constant attention. This episode is about leadership and what it takes to sustain performance at a high level without living in that state of perpetual activation. At this stage, doing more rarely creates the shift people want. The shift comes from redesigning how success feels, and energy is the signal. When your energy is strong, your focus and your decision-making, they're dialed in. When your energy is protective, your creativity returns, and you're so much more resilient. Energy also changes how you lead. People are drawn to leaders with presence. They follow leaders with the ones that bring a clear, calm presence into a noisy environment. Influence is currency at this level, and energy amplifies your influence. When your energy is depleted, even good decisions can feel heavy. When your energy is consistent, your leadership feels lighter because your nervous system is no longer bracing against what might happen next. So today, I want to give you a new KPI, a metric that matters because it determines how to keep going at this level without your business taking over your life. Energy is the real KPI. So I'm going to break this down today into 4 parts. First, why exhaustion shows up even when things are working. Second, how to use energy as data about your structure, not as a judgment about your capacity. Third, how rhythm restores energy without shrinking your ambition. And fourth, one daily energy protecting rhythm that you can implement immediately. One of the most unsettling experiences for high performers is feeling tired, strained, or mentally fatigued while life is objectively going well. The business is moving, people are happy, money's being made, and results are happening. But behind the scenes, the internal experience, it feels expensive. Something incredibly common at this stage is that exhaustion does not always come from volume. It often comes from staying mentally engaged all the time. It's what happens when your system believes something needs your constant monitoring. It might be monitoring your clients or your calendar, or it might even be that mental load of tracking your cash flow. or the hyper awareness of how you're being perceived. You can do that for a season, as many high performers do, but eventually the cost shows up in energy. I've lived this. Early in my career, I equated being a high performer with being available. I thought responsiveness was part of the value that I brought to the table. I really felt that the ability to handle everything quickly and well was part of what made me exceptional at my job. So I stayed on. I would check messages at night. I would run scenarios in my head while I was with my kids. I carried client outcomes like they were mine to manage. I could be in the car driving and I'd have a full negotiation conversation playing in my mind, anticipating what might go wrong just so I could try to prevent it. From the outside, it really looked like dedication, but from the inside, it was a constant state of mental engagement. Someone can be successful and still feel like they can't fully disconnect because their operating model requires that constant attention. And this is why energy matters so much. You can have a calendar that looks reasonable and still be depleted because your brain is holding too many active threads. Here's a distinction that shifts everything for high performers. Effort is your output, and energy is your available capacity. So effort measures how much you can do, and energy is how well you can do it and how much of it you have when it's done. Many high performers, they're trained to value effort because effort is visible. But energy is quieter, it's internal, it's really hard to quantify, so it often gets ignored until it doesn't. I want to bring in a client example that will probably feel familiar. A client came to me recently and she has a really strong business. She's profitable. She's very well respected in her industry. And she was describing a very specific experience that she was having and just couldn't shake this. Her mind never went quiet. So even when she was at home sitting on the couch, she felt like her brain was still tracking things. And even when she had time off, her mind never believed it. She kept saying, nothing is wrong. I just feel like I'm always carrying everything. And when we looked closer, it wasn't everything. It was a set of small leadership demands that were still requiring her mental supervision. There were these open decisions that were lingering and all of these recurring tasks that were being handled in a different way every time because a simple structure had never been built. There was these clients' expectations that have never been fully defined, so she was constantly accommodating them in real time. Her calendar didn't have any protected time blocks, so she was switching contexts all day long. And none of that's dramatic, but all of it, it's draining. So this is where I see many high performers trip themselves up. They try to solve an energy problem with a personal solution. They try to get more sleep or try to get more disciplined or even take a weekend off. And those things can be supportive, and I'm not dismissing them because I really do believe that your physical foundation absolutely matters. But the deeper shift it usually happens when the business stops requiring your constant attention. Your energy drains from all of those unfinished decisions, undefined standards, and all those mental tabs that stay open. So I want to guide you through a quick assessment, and I want you to answer this honestly, even if you're driving or walking and you can't write it down. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your daily average right now in terms of your energy on most days? So what is your daily energy on a scale of 1 to 10 most days? And now think about your day. When does your energy feel strongest? And when does it dip? Next, I want you to ask yourself a question that most high performers avoid. What is draining you most right now? Is it the mental load of tracking all of the time, just trying to keep track of everything in your head? Or is it the emotional load of regulating? Because those are different. Mental load is when your brain is managing multiple threads. Emotional load is when you're internally holding all of the pressure, the outcomes, and the expectations. And both are expensive. So now I want to ask you something a little bit more direct. If you were honest about what's draining you right now, what would you reduce immediately? And if you were intentional about restoring your energy, what would you increase? Most high performers, I find, they already know the answer. They just keep postponing the adjustment because everything is still functioning. And this is what makes it subtle. High achievers can operate at a very high level while carrying strain. They can absorb pressure for a long time before anything visibly cracks. And since nothing's breaking, it's really easy to assume that everything is sustainable. Energy tells you sooner. Energy shows up where the structure is asking too much of you. If your energy is consistently low or unpredictable, that's not random. That's your operating model revealing where refinement is needed. High performers often interpret dips in energy as personal. They internalize it. They assume that something is off with them, or maybe they just lost their edge. They feel that they should be able to handle what they've built. And that interpretation, it creates shame. And shame creates more strain, and then it just ends up lowering your energy even further. I want to take you out of that loop. Energy is feedback. Energy tells you how much cognitive load you're carrying and how many decisions are still running in the background. It tells you whether your calendar supports where you're going and if your boundaries are actually functioning. It also tells you if you've built the right structure for your business to create the freedom that you started it for. A business can appear organized and still depend on you mentally tracking everything. It's this nagging feeling like you always have to remember what needs to happen, or you're just spending your energy trying to anticipate problems before they happen. So even if you don't have a team, this shows up through systems. If systems aren't built, you become the system. And that is exhausting. There was a period in my business where I was still doing several things out of habit, even though I didn't need to. I had certain client communication patterns that were based on being extra available. I thought it was part of the value, but in reality, it was just creating constant interruptions throughout my day. And every interruption, it's not just a minute. It's a cognitive switch. It's a pull on your attention, and it's really a depletion of your energy. So I made a decision that felt almost too easy. I set communication windows. I communicated them clearly with my team and my clients so they would expect them. I also created a protocol for true urgency. And within weeks, the constant pull that I felt in so many directions, it really began to ease up. And my hours or my workload didn't change dramatically, but my internal experience did. And that's the point. Energy is shaped by design. A client came to my coaching and described her afternoons as a crash. She was disciplined, successful, and she was confused because she really felt like she was doing all the right things. And this happens a lot. We mapped out her morning and discovered she was starting her day in reactive mode. She would open her emails and text messages right away, and she'd respond quickly and just try to get to inbox 0. She really thought that she was being efficient. But she was spending her best cognitive hours on low leverage work. Her energy dropped because her nervous system was using peak capacity on reaction instead of direction. We restructured the first hour of her day. She started with one protected block for leadership work. And this was the time that she set aside for decisions, planning, and creating all of the work that actually moves the business forward. So then we moved all of her communication to a defined window just a little bit later in the morning. And I want you to remember that things won't fall apart if you don't respond to your email immediately. Energy stabilized really quickly for her when she changed the architecture of her day. So I want you to think about a time when you felt unstoppable. In that season, what was true? Was your calendar lighter, or did you have fewer open decisions? Were you more clear about what mattered in finishing what you started? What opportunities are you missing right now because your energy is being spent on things that should no longer require your attention? That question is meant to create clarity because your energy drives momentum, and momentum is the multiplier at this stage. When your energy is low, you delay decisions, and then all of those open loops, they just compound. Then your mind and your nervous system, they can never rest. And that cycle is what I call the constant performance loop. It's really described in a practical way. Energy gives you the chance to interpret it. And now I want to share 2 actionable takeaways from this section. Number 1, start rating your energy daily for 7 days. Not your mood. I want you to rate your energy. Rate it from 1 to 10, and then think about what influenced it that day. Because when you do this, you're training yourself to see energy as data. And then number 2, identify your biggest energy leak. And it's not always the obvious thing, but the real one. The one that keeps your brain engaged. The one that keeps your nervous system on high alert. Then I want you to ask yourself, what would need to change structurally for this to stop requiring your attention? Most high performers don't need another tip or a tactic. They need a redesign. So let's move into rhythm, because this is where energy starts to become sustainable. One of the reasons I see high performers resist focusing on energy is because they associate it with slowing down and potentially losing momentum. They fear that protecting their energy means reducing their output. But at your level, your rhythm expands output. Rhythm is the difference between a life that feels reactive and a life that feels intentional. It's the structure that tells your nervous system what to expect. And when your nervous system knows that there's a plan, it stops scanning for threats all day. That reduces your constant need to monitor everything, and your energy becomes so much more accessible again. Rhythm can be applied daily or weekly. So let's start with daily. Most people build a calendar based on tasks, and they ignore their energy cycles. But high performers, what I see is they often have these predictable windows. There's a time of day when your thinking is sharp, your execution is strong, and communication is really easy. But there's also a time of day when your energy dips and your body's asking for a reset. When you learn your pattern, you can build around it. So here's how I did this in real estate for years, and I want you to listen for the principle, not just the industry. I learned that my highest level thinking happened early. If I spent that time in the morning responding to other people, my whole day felt like I was catching up. So I protected my mornings for leadership work. Contracts, negotiations, client communications, those could all happen a little bit later. My ability to think, plan, and lead, that came first. I also built in an end-of-the-day ritual. So before I left the office, I would capture all of those open loops. I would schedule what needed scheduling, and I made decisions that were ready to be made and stopped carrying the rest home with me. This mattered so much because when I went home, I wanted to actually be home and be present with my husband and my kids. I wanted to have a life that felt like mine. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic. I've been a top producer and I've lived through so many market shifts. I built a business that could have demanded constant availability, but I chose to build something else, and that required rhythms. Now I want to give you 2 rhythm concepts that are immediately useful. So concept number 1 is decision rhythm. High performers, they lose energy when decisions are scattered. If you make decisions all day long, your brain never rests. And I want you to create a decision window. So this might look like 30 minutes each day when you decide, finalize, or approve and close all of those open loops. Or it might be one longer block each week where you do a higher level decision making. A client of mine implemented what she called Decision Thursday. So she stopped letting decisions drip throughout the week. She would just collect them, add them to the list, and then she would handle them all in that protected block on that Thursday. Her energy improved so much because her brain just trusted the plan and she wasn't thinking about this for every other day of the week. Concept 2 is communication rhythm. So If your communication is constant, you're always distracted and your energy becomes scattered. So, what you can do is set these communication windows. You can train people and create some new standards. You can define urgency with them and also tell them how you prefer to be communicated with. This doesn't make you less available, it makes you a lot more effective. So, let's move on to weekly rhythm. High performers often live with a calendar that has little or no margin or a recovery structure built in. Everything in their calendar, they kind of treat it as equal, but your body doesn't experience everything that way. When you're looking at deep creation or high stakes decisions or those heavy client delivery weeks, they all require recovery. And rhythm includes planned restoration. So it doesn't have to be an entire day off. Sometimes it's just a half a day with no meetings or a morning of deep work without interruption. Sometimes it's a weekly reset where open loops are closed before the weekend. Think about your week. What is your highest demand day? And now ask yourself, is there recovery built around it? If there isn't, your energy will become more drained over time because your nervous system is always preparing for the next wave. One of my clients had built a business where Mondays were super heavy with client meetings and updates, and she would find herself spending Sunday nights bracing for Mondays. And that bracing, that was already an energy leak. So we moved one meeting and set a Monday morning protocol. We created a plan where Mondays were prepared on Friday, so she didn't have to worry about them on Sundays. And that one thing alone, it totally improved her energy. Small architectural changes can create a huge internal relief. And that's the kind of work that changes your life without requiring you to do more. I want to make this so practical that you can implement it immediately. So choose one daily energy protecting rhythm. I want you to choose one, not 5, just one rhythm that protects your energy at the source. Here are a few options, and as you listen, notice which one creates a feeling of relief in your body, because that's usually the one you need the most. So, option number 1, a first hour protocol. This means you stop starting your day in reaction. You start your day with leadership. You decide what matters, you set the direction, and focus on what moves the business forward. Then the communication and responding to others begin after that time block. Option number 2 is a daily decision window. This is where you close all those loops internally. You choose a time to finalize what's ready or to schedule what needs more time. You remove those decisions from floating around in your brain. Option 3 is the end of day closing ritual. So this could be 5 or 10 minutes. And during that time, I want you to capture all those open loops and write down what matters tomorrow. Then you can close your laptop and end your day. So when you do this consistently, your mind starts to trust you again. And trust is energy. When your mind trusts that things will be handled, it stops trying to manage them all the time. So I want you to choose your rhythm, just pick it now, and then choose the smallest version of it that you can commit to for 7 days. So here's what I want you to track. At the end of each day, rate your energy from 1 to 10 and notice what's shifted because of that rhythm. And that's it. When you do that, you're building evidence that structure creates your energy. Now, let's future pace this a little bit. Imagine 90 days of consistent energy. Not perfect days, just more consistent energy. What changes? What would change in your world if that happened? How do you lead when you're so much more focused? And how do you communicate when you're not rushing all the time? I think most importantly, how do your relationships feel when you're present without needing to recover from your day? That's why energy is the KPI. Energy changes how everything in life feels. And at the level you're building, how life feels matters so much because it really determines whether you can keep growing without losing yourself in the process. If this episode is showing you that your energy has been carrying more than it should, that's really valuable information. Your energy is telling you where your current operating model still requires too much of you always being on all the time and maintaining those results and momentum. And that's exactly what we address inside the capacity and clarity audit. This audit looks at your business through the lens of redefining success, and it identifies what's creating pressure, what's keeping you mentally engaged, and what to refine first so your results stop requiring your constant internal effort. For some people, the audit is the most obvious next step because it gives them so much clarity and an action plan quickly. For others, private coaching is the right next step because they want the operating model redesign and also the support at a deeper level to help them with execution and decision making. Within the Redefining Success Collective, that's my monthly coaching membership, this work becomes part of how you live and lead because we're constantly working on building standards, rhythm, and structure in both your business and life. So the links to book the Capacity and Clarity Audit or to apply for private coaching or to join the Redefining Success Collective, they're all in the show notes for you. So I want you to take one rhythm from today and use it for the next 7 days. And then send me a DM on social media and tell me how much more energy and focus you have after implementing these ideas. I would love to hear from you. So thanks again for listening today. I'll see you in the next episode.